material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature. And in this way, the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disengage oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word "he" is used here for emphasizing this point. That is, that one must do this. It is also said, this is from the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo, bandhaya vishayasamgo, muktya nirvishayam namaha. For a human being, mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. Therefore, the mind which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation. And the next verse kind of goes with this, so we're going to read this one too. Text number 6. Bandharatmatmanastasya yenatmaevatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrute vartaitatmaeva shatruvat. For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. Purport. The purpose of practicing eightfold yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and his mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as the Paramatma or Supersoul. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmitatamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Prabhupada. Is there any way to minimize the crosstalk? You have this open thing. Is there a door we can put into it? Or maybe ask them to speak a little quiet. Thank you. So, these two verses and this whole chapter emphasize the process of yoga. When we come, in Krishna consciousness, we come to Krishna consciousness, we read the books, we take part in the kirtans and the feasts and the festivals and all these things. And sometimes we forget the yoga aspect of it. As Prabhupada defines yoga here, and properly of course, is that yoga means getting hold of this mind. Mind is the key element in terms of our destiny, who we are and what we're going to be. As we read the other night, these 3 verses from the 8th chapter, if one is able to remember Krishna when he leaves the body, that means the mind is Krishna conscious and will take him right back to Godhead. This will take you back to Godhead. But if the mind is filled with material desires, then that mind will take you into another body. This is very nicely explained by Lord Rishabdev in his teachings in the 5th canto. He says, Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya priteya apanoti nasarvamye yatatmanoyam asamnapi kleshada asadeha. He's saying there is certainly a fact that those who are simply engaged in trying to please the senses, indriya priti, which exactly translates as sense gratification. If that's your goal in life, he says his opinion is, taking a humble position, I don't think it's a very good idea. Na sadhu manye. Sadhu can mean different things. It can mean good, it can mean saint. It could mean this is relevant, as Prabhu famously said. But he says, na sadhu manye. Because by that activity, the mind will be saturated with desires for sense gratification, which is sure to bring you to another body, which is sure to bring you suffering. Then he has a very interesting verse. This is a very key verse. I always love this verse. Padavavas tavada bodha jato. Yavam najigyasata atma tattvam. Yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira banda. So he uses this pair. It's nice in Sanskrit. It's such a perfect language. Yavat tavat. Yavat tavat means as long as you do this, you're going to get this. Or it can be negative. As long as you don't do this, you won't get that. So here he begins with the tavat. In Sanskrit, the syntax, you can mix it up so the verses come out right. Padavavas tavat, aboda jato. So Padavavas Prabhupada defines there as defeat. In other words, as Prabhupada mentioned, the mission of life here, right? So if you don't accomplish the mission of life, which in the most basic way means breaking out of the bonds of birth and death, and returning to our original state, Satchidananda state, pure bliss, eternal life, full knowledge, then we've been defeated, at least this round. It's like in a boxing match, there's so many rounds. So we've been going around and around and around, and it's, I'm sorry, anyway, so we lost this round, and we get to try again. But we don't want to defeat, we want to, so he says, Padavavastavat, you will be defeated in your life's mission. Why? Because aboda jato, this defeat is born of ignorance. Defeat means that you just stay absorbed in ignorance and sense gratification. Since it's caused by ignorance, the cure is knowledge, but a certain kind of knowledge, atma tattvam, truth of the self. Self in the broadest sense. Atma means soul, Atma means super soul, Atma means mind. So one has to know all of these things. How is this mind and body, and how are the senses related to the soul? What's the relationship, and what's the relationship with the Supreme Soul? This is sambandha jnana. So if one has no interest in that, jigyasa means interest, inquisitiveness, and is simply living a life basically of animals, you're going to be defeated. You're going to come back again, and maybe even lose this human form of life. So padavavastava bodha jato, yavam, as long as you don't inquire, yavam na jigyasata atma tattvam. And then he describes the result of such a life. Yavat kriyas. Kriyas here means food of activity. As long as one is immersed in food of activity, 99.9% of the people. Yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai karmatmakam. Then your mind will be called karmatmakam. Karmatmaka means filled with all kinds of food of desires and plans to enjoy. And on the negative side, anxieties for having lost this, or maybe I'll lose this. And that's the karmatmaka mind, the ordinary material mind. Huh?
Conditioned mind.
Conditioned mind. Yena, by which sharira bandha. That mind is that factor by which you remain bound to a body. It's very simple Sanskrit, sharira bandha. Now, as in so many places in the Bhagavatam, they don't leave us hanging, right? The next verse provides the solution to the problem. So first he summarizes, evam manak karma vasham payunte. As long as the mind is impelled by karmic desires, eva karma vasham is that impelling. Payunte, avidhyatmam yupadi, and you're completely immersed in ignorance, then you're sunk. But not to despair. He said, Pritir the yavan mai vasadeve namuchate dehi yoginatava. So again with the avatava, if one gets love from me, Rishabdev is none other than Krishna. He's an incarnation of Krishna. Pritir the yavan mai vasadeve namuchate dehi yoginatava. So he presents it in this negative way, but he's given a solution. As long as one does not have love for me, Krishna, Vasudeva, he says Vasudeva, namuchate dehi, you will not be able to become liberated from the bondage to a body. So there's no mukti without bhakti. The impersonalists try to separate that. They deny bhakti. They deny the form of the Lord. Everything is maya to them. And they think they get liberated otherwise? No. You can't get liberated just merging into the Brahman effulgence, which is their ultimate goal. Because we're persons. We have our form, we have our activities, we have our desire to love and be loved in relation to Krishna. Now it's directed here, but we can't lose that inherent intrinsic nature of ours. That's because Krishna's a person. He has all those things. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So denying the personality and the Vishesh. You know what Nirvishesha literally means? No varieties, no details. Everything just merging into one. You know? Isn't it horrific? I mean, this is Kaivalyam Ladakayati. For a devotee, this oneness is hellish. Why? Because there's no bhakti. There's no loving exchange without Bhagavan and the bhakta and the process of loving exchange. To merge into oneness, to merge into Krishna, it's just hellish. It's just anathema to a devotee, which is very healthy. So now back to our verse from the Bhagavad Gita. It's the same idea. That in the conditioned state, we're actually living with our worst enemy. Why? Because this mind is now saturated with kama and krodha, with lust, anger, and all these things. At the end of the third chapter, Krishna very graphically explains this. I always return to that because it's exactly where we live. It's in our wheelhouse, as we say. So Arjuna asks, what is it that impels one to perform activities that he knows are bad for himself, but he must do it? You know. So they're on a battlefield, right? Now normally on a battlefield, on the other side is the enemy. Krishna says, no. Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava mahashano mahapapa vidya namiha vaidinam. Know this to be your enemy. It's lust, it's material desire in all its forms headed by sex desire, which is transformed into wrath. Wrath isn't anger. Wrath is really rage. Wrath is like all-consuming anger, where your intelligence is lost and you'll do things that you regret for the rest of your life sometimes. Right? Wrath is very dangerous because it's conducted by the mode of ignorance. So he says the real enemy is material desire, which then puts you in the danger of being overwhelmed with anger, and this is the eternal enemy of the soul. So then how does it work? Then he describes how we're covered by these things. Avitam jnanametena jnanano nityavaidana kamarupena kontaya dushparena nalainacha. It says it covers your knowledge. This is such an important point. Because everybody's conducted by these modes of nature and passion and these things. It's in the material world. That's why we're in the material world. So that means the real knowledge of who we are, what to speak of who Krishna is in relationship, is all covered. It's hidden from us, deep within our subconscious, right? But if we don't live in that knowledge. We don't have it there. So that's covered. And what happens is, it's various degrees of covering. The second verse, it can be very, very thick covering, like a fetus in the womb. Hare Krishna. Please, quiet. Got to give him something to do. Do we have forget about a coloring book. Do we have a spare iPad we can give him? We can play some game. The mind is. So there's various degrees of covering. A child in the womb is helpless, like an animal or a plant. They can't at this point come, but they come gradually up the species till they come to the human form. Then you have the dust covering the mirror, where there's some indication, but you really can't see anything directly, and that's a little clearer. But the human form of life is like the fire covered by smoke. You know, if there's a fire with a lot of smoke, you can see there's a lot of light there, and sometimes the smoke will part from the fire. So that's the human form of life. The only really form by which we can get out of this. It's a juncture, because we can understand the science and act on it. So then he has Avitam Jnanametena. Then he describes Indriyani Manobuddhiyam Asyadashtana Muchate. Etavamohayatecha Jnanamavitam. How does karma cover the soul? Through these strategic points. This is the enemy, right? This is on a battlefield. The enemy has captured the strategic points. The mind, the intelligence, and the senses. Indriyani Manobuddhiyam. Just like, and therefore, when the mind, those things are saturated with lust, you have no hope. You have no idea of what's what, of who you really are. You're simply being conducted by the senses of the material world. So then he starts giving a hierarchy, and this is very important. Indriyani param yahu, indriyegat param manaha, manasastu buddha buddhi, yo buddhe vadatastu saha. Sa here refers to the soul. So the senses are superior to the sense objects, but superior to the senses of the mind. But superior to the mind is the intelligence, and superior even to the intelligence is the soul. And then we know that superior to the soul is the super soul. But because we've lost contact with the super soul, everything is topsy-turvy. The sense objects are controlling the senses, right? You visualize that chariot going down the dangerous mountain road. You know the illustration, very nice. So the chariot is the body. The horses, 5 horses, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, right? As Prahlad says, the tongue wants to go this way, and the eyes are looking to see this, and the ears are hearing the cinema songs, right in the Bible down. And the touch wanting to touch the soft object. So he describes, I'm like a man with 6 wives pulling him in different directions. So it's very illustrative. So those horses are supposed to be controlled by the reins, which is the mind, but they're out of control. They're controlling the mind, and the poor intelligence is holding those reins, and he's also pulling. And the soul is on the ride, but it's very dangerous because it's a mountain road. He's crashing. So this is our present condition in our conditioned state. So how to get control of that mind is by strengthening the intelligence, by turning to the super soul. The super soul can give us a spiritual strength by purifying and strengthening our intelligence. Then it becomes possible to control the mind and control the senses. And of course, at the same time, the special mercy we have of the holy name, even without knowing anything, if you chant the holy name and hear, that's a direct contact with Krishna, and that attracts the mind away from the material objects. But there's no question that to sustain it, one needs to cultivate intelligence. In other words, this knowledge. So that's the first verse. One should elevate himself by his mind, not degrade himself. In other words, being human beings, we have a certain amount of freedom as to what we can direct our attention toward. Mm-hmm. If we simply let the mind and the senses decide, then we're helpless. We're being controlled by the object of the senses and by our lust in all of its varieties, material desire. But if we hear about this science, and we understand from so much philosophy that there's another state of existence which is not fraught with so much danger and fear, because a life simply of sense gratification is a life of fear. Because the platform of enjoyment and security is very unsure. It's all around us. In fact, the sense gratification is kind of an anodyne, is kind of a painkiller to try to help you forget that you're mortal. You know? But is that what we're all about? Bringing that curtain that Queen Kunti talks about, Maya Ajamani Kachanam, down even tighter. You know? That's the mentality of the drunk going to the bar. You know, to forget all his troubles and only drown in. So any kind of sense gratification, when we forget Krishna and we try to be separate enjoyers, we are really pushing in the back the reality. We're trying to forget our real nature, which is to be servants of Krishna. So the next verse talks, very nice, how the mind can be the friend or the enemy. Just as Krishna says, the mind saturated with material desires, which is controlling you, is your worst enemy. Which is really kind of bracing. We're living with that enemy. You know, when the mind is just is saturated with material desires. But the mind which is on Krishna, which is hearing the holy name and serving, that's our best friend. Especially when it's trained such to be spontaneously in that mood. Now we're spontaneously attracted to sense gratification. Just like a little child, you know? Child doesn't know anything. Just like, am I comfortable or not? Am I enjoying? Not. Is the mother there? Not. Not? Oh my God. You know, then the whole world is crashing. And the mother will say, oh, okay, life is good. You know, but it's moment to moment. This is the material mind. But we're meant to grow up, you know, and really train the mind. It's really a matter of training. That's why Bhakti Yoga involves, it's a yoga process. And everything we do, I mean, you don't do anything without the participation of the mind. Putting on a Rath Yatra, building a temple, coming to the programs, chanting Hare Krishna, it all affects the mind. The mind will hopefully being trained to be naturally Krishna conscious, to think of Krishna. That's the spontaneous part. That's what it means by spontaneous devotion. There's a nice verse, I always forget the Sanskrit, someone may know it. Rupa Goswami gives. Just as young boys think of a young girl and young girls think of a young boy, let my mind take pleasure in thinking of you. What is it? Yada yuni yunati yudavyo. Yeah, we got the meaning basically. But that's a great sentiment. In other words, you all have experience of that. Certainly you're attached to. You don't have to focus the mind on those things that are you're obsessed with. So therefore, how to train? First of all, the founding reality, that axiom that we accept. Krishna is all attractive. Krishna can attract all of us. And everyone in the universe, every living entity is naturally attracted to Krishna. We have voluntarily suspended that attraction. And we're directing it outside, to all the things that simply reflect a little bit of Krishna's attraction. There's nothing in this world that's attractive that's not reflecting some of Krishna's attraction. Yeah? But because it's mediated through the material energy, it's temporary and disappointing. And not only that, but it produces just the opposite, pain. What is Krishna attracted to? Love, Ladani Shakti, personified by Srimati Radharani. Right? That's what can really attract Krishna. When that Ladani Shakti, which is his pleasure energy, when we try to possess it, and we try to bring the world in our service, then that very Ladani Shakti produces suffering. There may be some little pleasure there, but there's bound to be a whole lot of suffering. Just like Rishabdev says, and just like Krishna says. So rather we need to redirect that Ladani Shakti back to Krishna, our little portion of it, which is our ability to serve and love and pay attention and absorb our mind. And the wonderful thing is, as soon as we make a little effort, the mind is attracted. I mean, all of us have had some experience of being absorbed, even if it's for a short time, in the holy name, Hare Krishna mantra. And when that happens, you can feel it. Ah, yes, it's very attractive. It's not stale. It's not boring. It becomes boring when the mind is distracted. It says, "Oh, okay, Before long, you're slurring the name and you're not really chanting properly." When you really, to make the effort, and this is the essential sadhana, as Krishna says in this chapter, the 6th. From wherever and whatever the mind wanders, draw it back under the control of the self. That self is Cap-S, that's Krishna, and for us mostly it's the holy name. Wherever the mind wanders, focus it again on the holy name, and let Krishna attract us. And pray. See, this is that my advice can't pray. I don't believe anybody is out there. Where would we be without prayer? The whole Hare Krishna mantra is a prayer. Please engage me in your service. But to chant prayerfully whenever we chant. In other words, we have to bring the intelligence to bear. What are we actually doing? We're calling out to Krishna. This is why the prayers of King Kulashekar, one comes to mind. Andasya me rita viveka mahadanasya charai prabho balabad indriya nama dehai mohanda kupa vihareva nipatatasya devesha dehi kapanasya karavalambam. Beautiful prayer. I think I shared it with some of you before. So he's saying that my senses, my powerful, the thieves known as my senses, have blinded me and stolen my treasure, which is my discrimination. That intelligence. They've stolen that. And they've thrown me into a deep, dark well. A blind well. And now I'm suffering. Andasami Rita Viveka Mahanan Chaurai Prabhu, O Lord. Balabad Indriya Nama. Very powerful senses. Mohan the Kupa Kuhade. The deep well and darkness of illusion. Blind well. Vinipatatas. Now what do? Devesha Dehi Kapanasya Kadavalambam. Please reach your hand down into that well and pull me out. So there's another verse by Rupa Goswami, very similar, where he talks about the rope of bhakti. Krishna may reach his hand down, but he also may lower the rope of bhakti down. This one I put into a poem, I'll share it with you. Manasitapani dushte, labdabatos mi dushte, timandagahna rupe, hanta samsara kupe, Ajita Nikada Raksha Heta Buddhara Raksha Upanayama Mahaste Bhakti Rajun Namaste. Bhakti Rajun is the rope of Bhakti. Fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya. Threatened by the snake of lust, whose venom burns like fire. Helplessly I pray, O Lord, whose strength is ne'er in doubt. Place the rope of Bhakti in my hand and pull me out. Very deep. So, whose strength is never down means Ajita. Krishna is never conquered by the lower energy. That's his energy. That's why he's Achyuta. Prabhupada gave a new meaning to the word infallible. Never falls under the sway of Maya. We do, unfortunately, because we're Manu. So in this prayer, he's painting the picture, just like King Kulashekar does. We're fallen, right? We're fallen. So we have to first recognize that we're fallen. Right? Otherwise, we don't want to get out. We want to be lifted up. So that recognition comes from hearing the Shastra, from hearing the realized souls. Okay, now I know that. So how can I get out? Well, I can't get out. I'm completely trapped on my own. We can only get out with the help of Krishna. That's why Balaram, right? He's the original guru. He gives us the spiritual strength. Krishna in the form of Balaram, in the form of the spiritual master, gives us the strength, the faith, the will to practice devotional service. And that is the rope of bhakti. So he said, please place the rope of bhakti in my hands and pull me out. So, but it's our job to hold on to that rope. If we're slack in our sadhana, that means we're letting that rope go, then even Krishna can't save us. Because we want to be illusion. We willfully becoming illusion. So every day, practically, we reenact the fall of the jiva. People want to know how the jiva falls. Well, we know how the jiva falls. We turn our back on Krishna. We forget the holy name. We sleep in. We embrace Maya instead of Krishna. So it's a struggle. Yes, it's a struggle because we're so conditioned. But we have so many helpers. We have so much facility. Srila Prabhupada, by his great effort and his supreme devotion, he provided us with everything. With the books, with the association, with the deities, with the holy name, with the festival, with the prasada. You count all the things that help us to make us Krishna conscious, and they're ultimately gifts of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, to do what he did and inspire his followers to spread the movement and give it as he gave it. This was, Prabhupada's great gift. It's just giving it at every moment. But we have to take advantage of it. That's the thing. And we should never forget that it all comes down to the mind. Smarta vyapsadatam Vishnu, vismarta vyonajati Sava vidin shadaksur etiore kinkara. Kinkara means a humble servant. So he said, always remember Vishnu or Krishna and never forget him. All of the do's and don'ts, the vidhi and the shadra, the prohibitions and the prescription, are servants of these two. Whether we may be asked to clean the temple, and the mind may rebel. No, that's not wrong. We had a you stay in the mood for 40 years, you experience a lot of different things. So, I was living in Philadelphia in the 80s, and we had this house nearby the temple. It was about a mile from the temple. And Jaya White,